Hello, it's Kristy again, and this week's element of fiction is mood. So, let's start with the basics. What is mood? Mood is the feeling a reader gets from literature or art. It is the atmosphere of how you feel. It uses adjectives mostly to bring the tone from the author into the reader's life. It is important to mention tone because it is how the author feels about the subject, and then from knowing what that is, it's easy to decipher what the mood is, which the author is trying to convey to their readers. So, sometimes it's the same as tone, sometimes it's not. But through the author having his or her own tone, the author's also able to create mood, which they want the reader to have, which is what we just talked about. So, adjectives, within the word choice, imagery, sound, and setting all work into finding what the mood is in a piece of literature. So for mood, you want to look at the word choice, which is how the reader feels, and parts that go into identifying what it is compromises of the specific connotations of words through the author's language. So word choice also involves imagery, because the language the author uses improves what is going on and what everything else looks like and what is happening. So looking at figurative language in the book is another good way of finding the mood. So imagery helps a lot with choosing which mood is created, and figurative language plays into that because it accompanies the imagery and creates a more clear picture, which is creating a more clear mood. Helps you feel what you do. And lastly, setting also takes place in creating this mood. The reader observes what connotations are associated with the setting and how it is all described. Strong descriptive and thoughtful words are used when describing the setting, and those are clear giveaways to what type of mood the author is trying to get the reader to feel and understand the book in. So, before I read it's about a whole page where it has a really good mood setting where that's found. Let me go over the story, what's happening in the story. So, we're in the 6th chapter, and Cy is short for Simon, our main character, Simon Morley. He's just begun the experiment, and he's in the apartment where he'll be in for a while, acting like it's the 1880s. It's like he's going back to the past. So it's as if the buildings were just built, the park was just made, all the street lights put up and lit by hand like they used to be. So he is falling asleep to wake up on the day of January 5th, 1882. So I'm going to read the page 88 of Jack Finney's book, Time and Again, because it's just like 3 paragraphs, but it has a lot of mood, a lot of places where you can find really good mood. So you will get the anticipation of the coming adventure and a knowing of what the future holds. That's kind of what the mood is. It's anticipation and wonder, almost like unknowing, but it's like wonder. So I'll read it to you and then I'll go over what I found to help you all understand the mood as a good example. I walked in, closing the door behind me, my eyes widening, accustoming themselves to the faint light from the tall rectangles of the windows. I knew the layout and appearance of the apartment. I'd been here with Dr. Danziger and Rube the day it was completed. Now I walked over to one of the windows, stopped, and stood looking down onto the pale curves and jumbled shadows that were the paths and greenery of Central Park under the moon. Directly below my window, if I'd cared to lean forward and look straight down, I knew I could have seen the streets, Central Park West, and its traffic lights and occasional cars. Far across the park, if I lifted my eyes to look, I could have seen a few still-lighted windows in the block after block row of great apartment houses bordering Central Park's eastern side. By turning my head to the right, I could have seen the rooftop neon of the hotels at the southern end of the park, and the lights of the great midtown office buildings beyond. But I looked at none of these. Instead, I stared down into the shadows of Central Park, And almost directly ahead the moon shone on the surface of the lake, just as it might have been, I thought, on another such night when the building I stood in was new. On the curved roads of the park, widely spaced street lamps burned, each with a nimbus of late-at-night mist, and it seemed to me that from here they couldn't look very different, if at all, from the way they had looked long ago. There was a heavy green window shade, I knew, and in the darkness I pulled it down, then drew the velvet drapes. I did this with each of the other windows, then brought a matchbox from my pocket. I struck a match on the sole of my boot. It spluttered, then caught and burned steadily, the wax running thinly down its stem. Cupping the flame with my other hand, I lifted it to an L-shaped ornamented brass tube projecting from the wall. Fastened to the short arm of the tube was a bracket on which a flowered glass shade was fitted. A key-shaped brass handle projected from the underside of the tube. I turned it, heard the soft hiss of gas, then touched my lighted match to the open end of the tube. A wedge of blue-edged flame popped into existence under the glass shade, and a wavering circle of flowered gray carpet appeared at my feet, then steadied. I looked at the room and its furnishings for only a moment or so. It was approaching 2 a.m. 2 o'clock in the morning of January 5th, 1882, I said to myself, suddenly realizing that the experiment had begun. But I was tired, empty of all energy now, and my hand still on the fixture. I turned the light out, then walked down the hall to my bedroom. So I'm going to tell you some places where mood was very prevalent there. So let's start with word choice. You have the velvet drapes, the matchbox, the sole of his boot, wax. This shows all the extent of effort that was put into the details of the surroundings. It gives an oldish kind of feel to the reader and makes them feel like they would have been brought back to the past, because you don't light the match on your shoe anymore. You have this special thing. You don't use wax candles. You just have like a little stick with a match on it. So that was the intent, to bring you back to the past, and this shows mood because the reader has been feeling like they've been transported back to this old time. That's what the author was aiming for. It's kind of a curious setting, 'cause you've never felt like you've been in the 1882s before and how it would have looked like. So for the setting, you can hear shadows, moon shining on the surface of the lake, curved roads, street lamps burning. Burning is a good word to notice. Late at night mist. All the words come together in that one paragraph that had all of that to affect the reader, because they seem like mysterious and unknowing things that you'd want to learn more about, because it's not something you really see. I mean, you see the moon, but you don't really see burning street lamps. You don't see the flame inside of them. It's very interesting. You kind of have questions. Who down there lit the street lamps? Who was in the park today? In 1882, who was down at the park? What they look like? Who works in the buildings? What do the buildings look like from the inside? Because I'm sure that's changed over time. And then finally, with imagery. We can observe where it's mentioned on the page 88, where it said, I heard the soft hiss of gas and a wedge of blue-edged flame popped into existence under the glass shade. And then it steadied. This is personification because it evokes, well, obviously you can tell it's personification because the gas didn't hiss, the flames don't just pop into existence. They're not alive. But all of this evokes and creates mood. It's old-timey feel, and what will the duration of the experiment for Simon look like? You're very this is the start of the information that they give you, and you're curious. Brings curiosity and mystery and wonder. So I think it was pretty easy to see the kind of mood that Jack Finney was trying to bring to his audience. And those are some examples. So I hope you learned something. We'll be back next week. Bye.